Have you ever heard about the Agile Manifesto? If not, then you certainly need to, because the Agile Manifesto is a landmark artifact that has changed the foundations of project management, not on the surface, but from its entirety. In the decades of 1990s, the enormous time lag between the business requirements and the technology that support those business requirements may lead to cancel many mega projects. So subsequently, in the year 2000, a group of 17 software developers set together to create a parallel knowledge stream that can understand the present and future needs of the project management, especially the software development projects. So as a result, in 2001, they created a historic manifesto, which today is known as the Agile Manifesto. So the Agile Manifesto has four foundational values and 12 guided principles. And in this video, I'm going to explain in detail the four foundational values. So again, for the PMI-ACP aspirants, this video is going to be immensely important to understand the foundational concepts around Agile. So without any delay, let's just get started. So back in the 1990s decade, there was a technological gap that was being built at a rapid pace between the technological requirements, the business requirements, and the technology that was available at that point in time. And it was leading to cancel many projects due to having that gap. So it was heavily realized at that point in time that uh, a framework or something is needed to design so that it can bridge that gap and understand the present and future requirements of project management, especially the software development projects. So, a biggest gathering of 17 think tanks from the software industry, also called themselves as anarchist, they sat together and decided to agree and create a parallel knowledge stream. And the motivation was to uncover better ways of developing software by doing it and helping others to do it. So they named themselves as an Agile Alliance, and then they agreed and created a landmark artifact in the year 2001. So in the modern age, we used to name that artifact as the Agile Manifesto. So the commencement of this remarkable manifesto has not just changed the entire landscape of project management, but it has again changed the foundations of the project management, and not from the surface, from but the complete entirety of it. So the today project management is not is a quite different as it is supposed to be in the decades of 1990. And the current landscape of the project management is now inclined towards the waterfall. And why I'm saying so? Because the waterfall approach at the moment is now in a melting pot, and it's transitioning heavily on to the agile. And because the Project Management Institute has recently announced a massive change in their project management structure, which previously was completely around the waterfall approach, but now it's 50% around the waterfall, and the other half is now on the agile side. Let us now look into the four foundational values of the Agile Manifesto. So, the first foundation value of Agile Manifesto is individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And why individuals and interactions have a higher precedence over processes and tools? It's because it's the people who completes the project. It's the people who negotiate. It's the people who bring the knowledge work. It's the people who bring the best innovation into this world, because it's not the processes that completes the project. It's again not the processes that negotiate or that do the knowledge work, because the processes, they do they create repeatable results. Processes, they don't replace people, but it's the people that can replace the processes. It's the people who can even make a better processes. It's the people that can help the processes to bring more valuable outputs. So that's the reason, and that's the core reason the Agile Manifesto puts higher emphasis on individuals rather than on processes and tools. The second foundation value of the Agile Manifesto is working software over comprehensive documentation. And why is that so? Because agile projects, they need to deliver value, because value is about purpose. Our business need the project aims to deliver, and working software is basically a working chunk of a software that is usable to the client, and that is something which can add the value of a project. So documentation is usually barely sufficient. It's the working software that is the primary measure of the progress in agile projects. Documentation is done just in time, and it's usually, according to the Agile Manifesto, it is done as the last responsible moment, which means that documentation must be done when it is needed. So there is one another occasion where documentation might be needed. It's due to the industry requirements and organizational requirements. It's that point in time when documentation becomes mandatory and you need to complete that documentation. Other than that, for the agile projects, working software is having a higher precedence over comprehensive documentation. For the agile projects, documentation adds no value. Documentation is actually a waste. Who actually reads end users license agreements? Who reads comprehensive reports? So documentation is needed again when it's required. Light documentation is okay, comments are okay, but excessive documentation is a waste for the agile projects. The third foundational value of the Agile Manifesto is customer collaboration over contract negotiation. And why customer collaboration is having a very high precedence over the contract negotiation? Because in the agile projects, customer is valued a lot over the contract negotiation. Because in agile projects, customers are usually engaged in each and every aspect of the project, in each and every phase of the project. Unlike the waterfall approach where customer is usually engaged before or after the project so that make a necessary negotiations. Before the project, customer is usually engaged to make the sign-offs, whereas after the project, customer is usually engaged in a waterfall approach to validate the scope, to make enforcements of the requirements, that is the project has met the requirements or not. But in an agile project, customers are basically engaged. They're not taken as a customer, but rather they are the partners in your project. So you get feedback by the customer after each and every iteration. Once you demonstrate your product with the customer, you get the feedback from the customer so that you can make the product even better. So remember, in the agile project, customer collaboration is having a higher precedence over contract negotiation, because in contracts are usually rigid and they are adamant in terms and conditions, whereas in agile there are no contract negotiation but rather customer collaboration. Difference between being right and doing the right thing, and it's doing the right thing what we actually strive in agile project, because this is the core of the agile projects. So again, remember that customer collaboration is having a very high precedence over contract negotiation, and that's the ultimate soul of the agile manifesto, and that's the third value of the agile manifesto. The fourth and the last foundation value of the agile manifesto is responding to change over following a plan. So, change in an agile project is a very common attribute. You can say that change in an agile project is a very common phenomenon, because a change in an agile project can commence at any point in time, and the project manager and his team must be ready to adapt that change for the customer's competitive advantage. And rather than following a plan, the project manager and his team must be ready to understand that change that is coming from either from the customer or it's some sort of a defect that has come. So they must be ready to harness that change so that the final product would look like in a better shape. And again, a change may come from different sources. Sometimes it's the customer that is going to ask you an extra feature. Sometimes it's a product defect. Sometimes there is a change in the final product. But by any means, if there is a change coming, the project manager and team must be ready to adapt that change rather than they are just relying on a plan, which usually we do in waterfall approach. Because in waterfall approach we completely plan the project up front. We do have the certainty in waterfall approach. We know the exact deliverable, what we are going to deliver in the agile approach. But in agile projects there's a uncertainty up front. We cannot plan the entire project up front, so there is a limited visibility of the project. So we must accept accept change that might commence at any point in time. So for the Agile Manifesto, remember that responding to change has a very high precedence over just following a plan. So with the last foundation value, we have now reached to the end of this video. And I'm really hoping that this video has just brought some value and knowledge addition in your existing knowledge base. So please put your queries in the comment section and I'll get back to you with the best of my knowledge. Thank you for watching the video.